Hi, welcome back to Cambridge Inside Out, and I'm Judy Nathans.
And I'm Robert Winters.
So we're going to continue to slog it out,
yeah.
Well, some other big things came up.
Yeah, so we were talking a little bit about
Yeah.
things that happened at the
Right.
city council meeting last
Right.
night. Certainly, we talked about the sanctuary city thing. There was a thing,
Non-voting rights.
the non-citizen voting
Right.
initiative. There were a few other items as well. Perhaps we could just sort of dive right into some of them.
Do you want to mention the awaiting report thing or no?
Yeah, well, let's just do that right
Okay.
now. There was one, we got some write-up in some of the local blogs about how there was a policy order from Councillor Chung calling for all of the, when city council passes various matters, so they sit in there in the queue, some of them
Awaiting
are...
report from an appropriate department or
Yeah,
something?
so some of them are, and some of them will stay on awaiting report for a
Yeah.
long time.
Yes.
Sometimes they just go there to die, quite honestly.
Yeah.
So what happened when Bob Healy left as city manager, there was an initiative, I believe, from then David Marr, to just whisk away all the old ones so that the new city manager, Richie Rossi, would have a clean slate. And then, some of the items came back then,
Because people put them in again?
I
They
think
were allowed
so,
to do-
yeah.
okay.
But basically, they just,
All right. Yeah.
washed them away. So Councillor Chung said, well, let's do that again.
Sure, we have a
Because
new
Richie's
city
gone, we
manager.
got a new
Right.
city manager, and this was his first official meeting
Right.
as a city manager.
Right.
So we wanted you to do that. Now, whether it was good or bad, I don't know. But so some people in the blogosphere was saying how what a horrible way to govern this is, and blah 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 blah. But it had happened before. I don't know that it was such a great idea. My thought about it was that they should say, well, we're going to just whisk away everything unless there are some that you think really are important, and then give each councillor some discretion to say keep that one, and let the other ones go. Right. I thought they might do some, but nope, they just shot it down straight away.
Who shot it down?
The council voted
There was a
against that order, so
okay.
so everything remains on a waiting report, which is not bad.
Okay.
It's not that
I
big.
guess
a
I
list.
missed that. Okay, okay.
Yeah, I mean it's not
34, I think they said 34?
something like
Something-
that. Yeah, I
sounds
mean
right.
honestly, Richie Rossi and company
Yeah.
have been doing a pretty good job of working their way down through the reports. One thing I wish they would do is if there's something you're not really going to act on, give a pro forma
Yeah.
response that says,
You
look,
say,
this
look,
is just not really worth our while right now.
Right, we're putting this at the low
Yeah,
priority.
and we're
Yeah.
really going to just put this on the back burner.
But they
if
don't
it-
do that, no?
There's this sort of misplaced sort of courtesy. Somehow leaving it on a waiting
I
report
think it's sort of saying that.
is sort of saying that. So I
But
would.
it's like being on the bus that's not moving and no one's telling you why not.
I know. So I think they should just say it.
Yeah.
And every
Right.
once in a while I've seen that where there would be like 6 or 7 reports
Yeah.
back that were really like 2 paragraphers.
Right.
That's really what should happen. There's no
Right,
need
I
for something to
agree.
languish on there with
Well,
some
hopefully
expectation.
this city manager will get on board about that.
I think so, but it's not just Louis. I mean, the thing
No,
is
it's probably
that
happened before,
everybody in
yeah.
the city manager's office plays a role in here. Basically, these things are often referred to city departments, and then the city departments will just sort of sit on them
And
for a
some
while.
are very complex. It requires a response from several city departments
Yeah.
to come up with a report,
Yeah,
and that's
yeah,
crazy.
Yeah. So anyway, so that happened.
so that happened.
That went down to
Yeah.
defeat. But it was kind of interesting listening to a bit of the rhetoric back and forth about
I
it.
guess I missed that part.
Yeah. So anyway, that was one little item. One thing is just a kind of an infrastructure matter. There's, as everyone knows, we had a rather bad drought this year.
Yes.
So one of the items, the new city manager had promised to give periodic reports on the state of the Cambridge water supply.
Right.
And in fact, it's not like the reservoirs have become overflowing. They're still really low.
Yeah, just go by Route 2.
We're still in drought
Yeah.
condition,
Yeah.
but we did have some rain in October, and so the reservoirs actually are filling up somewhat, way below what where they should be. I read today actually the Quabbin Reservoir is now below normal levels for the first time in many years.
But they still have 4 years of supply.
Right, because that's a huge
Yeah.
reservoir. So anyway, the good news was that we've actually not been using exclusively MWRA water. There are some days.
Ah.
Just because you want to keep the machines working, you have to, in the plant.
So I guess even I didn't realize we have been using their water.
Yeah, we started doing it, I think, on October 11th.
I know that, but I didn't know we were continuing.
But we switch off. Sometimes we're on MWRA,
Okay.
sometimes we're on
So
Cambridge
please,
Water.
try to conserve water, watch those showers.
Definitely do that.
And even brushing your teeth, running the water, no.
Right, but on Cambridge Water, we were able to save about $500,000 because we got some water
That's
even
good.
during this. So this is good. So they're playing it as
Yeah.
appropriate. So anyway, I appreciate Louis.
Yeah.
Given the periodic reports, it was a good thing
Yeah.
to say. There was another item which I actually found interesting, which had to do with it was a communication relative to projects and initiatives related to the city's bicycle safety work plan. Now, this is probably too big an item to talk a lot about.
Is that what it's called now? Bicycle Safety Work Plan?
Well, I think that's just what the title given to this report was.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so there was a lot of orders.
Oh, right, I see right here.
Policies passed several weeks ago having to do with various ideas that some people promote for what they believe to be greater bicycle safety.
So here's the report. That's interesting. I didn't read this. Okay.
Yeah, so there are some differences of opinion about this. Certainly, I've been pretty outspoken about it, to say the least. I mean, I'm all for bicycle safety, but I just have a different way to achieve it. Which does not always just means hiding bicycles behind parked cars. But anyway, one thing that was part of the council's policy orders called for kind of stepping up or revisiting the plan for Huron Avenue, where there's been a
Yes, I
huge
did listen to that.
project going on for.
What's going on there now? Are they doing stuff underground?
There was a lot of stormwater separation.
Okay.
Separating septic
Yeah.
and stormwater, and plus a lot of road projects, a lot of reconfiguration, a lot of curb extensions, a lot of raised crosswalks, all these things to enhance pedestrian safety,
Right.
bicycling safety, and actually corralling motor vehicles so that they're not just, it's not like the wild west as well. So anyway, it was a pretty well thought out plan that had a lot of stakeholders involved in the process. Then came along these orders that say, well, in some respects, scrap all that. We want you to put in separated bike lanes.
After they've been doing all these curbs.
And truth is that, I mean, he's going to pencil it out in the air. If you've bumped out curbs like this, but you now want to separate bike lanes,
That means taking
you
all
have to
that back.
remove the curb extensions. You have to do a lot of changes in the plan. And things then that were meant to make things safer for pedestrians will no longer be safer for pedestrians.
It's also a two-way street.
And that is a
Huron
two-way
is a two-way
street.
street.
And in fact, most places where separated bike lanes are installed tend to be, not exclusively, I can show you one over in Alston, which is on a very wide street with little or no parking. There's a new one they have over by Beacon and Street.
Yeah,
in
that's the one I
Nassau.
took photographs of.
Right.
It's a one-way. This is what we're going to say, right?
Right.
They're
So
one-way streets.
typically it's one-way streets.
Western Ave here.
Most of the separated bicycle infrastructure in New York City are on one-way streets.
And I just showed you that stat that
from
from the Green State, whatever it was, initiative.
So the
2/3
advocates
of all
Yeah.
are on one-ways.
But a lot of the activists come back and they say, well, New York is doing it, but they don't say that, well,
It's
they're on
one-ways.
one-way streets.
Right.
And
Pittsburgh,
yeah,
huge city.
huge city.
And I looked it up. There's 4 areas are working on the 4th now, and one is in downtown, so they're very designated areas.
Right.
And I imagine a lot of them are one-ways, I bet,
Right.
but I didn't look that far.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that we have separated cycling infrastructure and have around here in the form of the Paul Dudley White bike path along the Memorial Drive, because I think everybody will agree Memorial Drive you need to
It's a major-
separate.
Right, yeah.
And there's some other examples as well. And certainly in a place like New York, if anybody's ever been to New York on a bicycle, and I have, navigating a 5-lane highway with speeding 50-mile-per-hour taxi cabs zigzagging their way through, there's some good reasons for wanting to separate out the cyclists. I don't think it's proven here that it's really the best plan, but lots of people came up to City Hall and said, "Do it, do it, do it."
Well, but maybe some streets. I could
Some
see
streets.
it on
I don't dispute it for a minute.
Yeah.
You know,
And
honestly,
make certain, I do, the one point brought up by, I guess it was Councilor Devereaux, but that we need a bicycle network in this a comprehensive plan. Now, that kind of made sense. Like, what are the best ways to get from A to B?
Right.
And then maybe look at, you know.
Oh, I agree with that.
And I think that's important because no one's looked at the whole thing.
But a network doesn't necessarily mean one single unified.
No, I agree with you. You're right.
Because the streets are not unified.
No, you're
There's
right.
narrow streets,
But
medium
there's
street,
there's
wide
certain streets that could be not, and
Right.
and I think they do need to do a better job
River
of
Street
painting.
is a absolute
right.
horror show for anybody who wants to
Right.
compete with traffic coming off the Mass
But
Pike.
I would like to see more colored paint on the streets, frankly. I don't think
The city policy in Cambridge is actually different from that in Somerville in that Cambridge wants to basically use the very bright green paint to highlight the hazard zones. In Somerville, they just want to paint the roads green.
Well, I notice it though when I see it.
I know,
see
you
it
do
in
notice
Boston,
it.
and I see
No, I think you can
something
make-
more has to be done to highlight.
Yeah,
better, that's all.
you can make the case. I think
Yeah.
it's fair to say. But anyway, what happened with the Huron Ave situation there is
Yeah,
the
that-
city came out and said, well, here's some of the pros, here's some of the cons.
Right.
And unless you can give us a real strong indication otherwise, we're kind of sticking with the plan that's been developed with all the stakeholders.
Yeah, and people didn't like that. Some people didn't like
So,
that.
you know, it's not, you know, it's...
Well, they
people are-
understood because, you know, there already has been disruption and they don't want to make it even longer disruption.
That's really true.
Yeah.
So some counselors said it's pretty clear. You know, if you want to turn the kind of nightmare scenario that they've been putting up with for the last few years for another
Right.
extra year with a lot of additional expense,
People are going to hate bicycles.
people are going to be really mad about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And besides, it doesn't necessarily provide any greater safety. If you actually look at the plan that's actually laid out for Huron Ave, I don't know whether it's in the link here or not, but
Where would I look?
what they're really doing is they're having what they call buffered bicycle lanes. So in addition to having a bike lane, they'll actually have kind of an X'd off little strip between the bike lane and the regular travel lane. So that unless somebody's just an incredibly insane driver, they're going to be well buffered away from the proposed
Yeah.
bike lane.
I saw it
is
on
a huge
somewhere I
improvement
saw it, but I don't know
over how
where.
it is today.
Yeah.
So
Was that the photos of Huron? Was that on the city?
yeah. No, I even have it in there in the bike
Yeah.
plan. Yeah, but anyway, so that's where it stood. Now, you know, there were some other. I mean, I have to mention, I was at a traffic and transportation committee meeting last Wednesday.
Yeah.
6 days ago, which
Oh,
was
here it is. Yeah, right.
that was focused on the idea of whether they should increase the resident permit parking fee.
Oh, right. When was this meeting?
It was last Wednesday.
Oh.
And I went to this one because I said, well, you know, remember it used to be $4, then it became $8, then it was $20, now 25, and I don't think that's at all unreasonable. But now there's some city councilors who want to at least double it, and listen, that's not going to break me, but it is a bit of a burden on some when you start adding it up. And for what purpose is what my concern was. And you know, they say, well, we want to use it so we can pay for other capital projects for road safety. I said, well, that's good because the law requires money raised through that fee to be used for projects or at least related to it. That makes some sense. But at least one city councilor came right out and said, I was really hoping we could raise the fee sufficiently high so that so many people would be disincentivized from owning vehicles that we could get rid of all the parking on major roads like Broadway, Hampshire Street, Cambridge Street, and Mass
Did
Ave.
they actually mention all those roads as getting rid of the parking?
The truth is, if you actually think about it, and if you talk to people who are involved in it, if you actually tried to move vehicles in toward the center of the street in order to accommodate the bike lane,
Those are all two-way streets,
but
yes?
these are streets you would not be able to have enough room for two vehicles to pass each other. Certainly not buses,
No.
and even if they could, they'd be whacking
Those are
each
bus
other.
streets. Those are major bus streets.
Yeah, so
Cambridge Road.
when you actually look at it, honestly, you're not going to be moving, if you're going to insist upon having this separate infrastructure, you're not going to be simply moving the cars out into the road. You're going to be removing the cars. And I think people need to be honest about that. If you're saying we want to remove all parked vehicles from Broadway, Cambridge Street, Hampshire Street, and Mass Ave, or at least large portions of Mass Ave, you just have to say that. And one city councilor actually said, well, I was hoping we could, by jacking up the permit parking fee, we would do it enough so that we would make it sort of onerous to own motor vehicles, and this way we would be able to just do that. And I thought, well, that's not
That's crazy. Because the people that can really afford that 300 are the ones probably parking there to begin with.
You know, honestly, the places where
these huge cars.
the places where people were really
crazy.
insistent on putting those lanes, like on Hampshire Street, those are not the rich parts of town. So, you know, they said the same. So those of us who want to live out, you know, near Fresh Pond or something like that, it's not going to be a burden for us. But, you know, for others it may be. But you know, to me, my objection is just that I just would rather live in a city that's a little kinder, a little more accommodating. So we want to accommodate bicyclists, but we shouldn't be hostile to people who own motor vehicles either. We should certainly insist on motor vehicle operators drive responsibly. We're lowering the speed limit to 25.
You could raise the parking fees at the meters.
Which they've done over the years.
Yeah, well,
They can
not as
do it
much as
even more.
Brookline. It's now 12 minutes for 25
Right,
cents, yeah.
unless you're near Fenway Park during a ball game.
Oh, forget that.
You put your life savings in there.
Right,
to
well,
do
but
that,
that's
right?
understandable.
No, I get
Yeah.
that too, yeah. But I just wish they would just back off a little bit and just say, look, the city government shouldn't be basically declaring war on its residents here.
Yeah, wait till we all die off. Okay?
Right,
Then you
yeah,
can have the young people
yeah.
that don't want to have cars.
Yeah, so I think there's a happy medium here,
Yeah.
and we should seek that
Can't
out.
make everybody happy.
I know.
You've got to find, and we are an old city that's trying to accommodate new things.
I know, but
We're not a big city. We're quirky in many ways. So I do think we need a good network plan of bicycle paths. I would
Well,
feel
I think-
safer. I mean, I don't use it a lot.
I would actually
but, yeah.
start by finding the places that are most hazardous
Yes.
and addressing
Well,
the
I guess they're
hazards
slowly
and
doing that.
working your way out.
Yeah.
You know, so to me, hazardous intersections, you know, just go for the
Right.
important stuff first, which is not what the orders were really about.
Yeah.
So anyway, another really big item, which was that we were just talking about, was city manager item number 5, was number 6.
Was it the
Was that at
inclusionary?
long last, the actual language for a zoning amendment for inclusionary zoning.
Yeah,
They finally made it to the
goes beyond
council.
me. I don't get all that stuff, but
Well, I
I know there's a lot of discussion. You can.
There's a lot of particulars about it, you know, and I was glad to hear. I haven't read the whole thing as it's written
Okay.
because they actually had to make some
But
changes.
isn't this the report that was presented a while ago?
What happened was
Yeah,
is
tell
that
me the process.
so there was this report that then was vetted through the housing committee, and the housing committee
Okay.
basically said, well, this is what we want or don't want.
Oh, so it went
And
back
then-
to the-
So then the language came back.
Okay.
That was vetted by the law department because they have to make sure what they're doing meets
Is legal.
constitutional requirements, because you remember when you're basically telling somebody this is what you must do with your property because we say so,
Better-
there are certain constitutional rights that you as a property owner may have. And,
Okay.
so I remember when they first passed inclusionary zoning in 1998, the basic principle was we will require you, if you have building more than 10 units, to build these units that we will then make available for people of certain modest means throughout the city. But in exchange for that, we will let you build another unit. It was a one-for-one swap. So we allowed a little additional density, so you could build a slightly fatter building, and this way the city got a benefit, you got a benefit, so it was kind of a wash. So it wasn't a taking in any sense. But anytime you pass a law, like if you wanted to institute rent control, there would be there would certainly be a pushback with people saying, no, this is an illegal taking. Mm-hmm. Right? It's not like eminent domain. You know, it's just
Right.
like we're telling you what you can and can't do with your property, and you can't really do that. So the law department had to vet this pretty carefully. So they have language back now that's been worked out with the community development people, law department people. The basic features that, from my understanding, is that they're going to shoot for 20%
20.
net total.
What was it, 12?
It
or-
was 15 nominal, but by the time you added in the additional housing that the developer could build for market,
Right.
it basically became about 11.6 or so.
So now they're
percent.
shooting for 20?
So they're almost doubling it.
Yeah.
And I personally have some concerns that maybe they're going to make it so non-viable that nobody's going to want to build housing.
I doubt it.
Well, it depends. Things are shifting now. Remember, with the new administration. I don't know where. Right now, money is so dirt cheap.
I know, but there's going to be tax cuts for corporations. There's going to be.
But there wouldn't necessarily be tax cuts for affordable housing developers.
But this isn't. I thought inclusionary zoning isn't really aimed at affordable housing developers. I thought it's aimed at the people.
It's really well. It depends on whoever builds it, really. But if you're an affordable housing developer, you're probably building all affordable housing.
Okay.
But if you're just a housing developer, it's not so clear that the new administration.
No, I understand that. But an affordable housing developer, does that apply? I mean, don't they get special perks because they are building affordable housing?
But this is mainly for market developers who want to build market
That's
housing,
what I'm
but
saying.
they're required. But the thing is that if you say I was going to build a housing here, but now you're giving me requirements now, and they're not increasing the density bonus at all.
Right.
So basically, they're now changing the law to require you to give back more, and we're not giving you anything.
In exchange.
So I'm a little curious about how that's going to work legally. But anyway, they're going to phase it in, but a pretty rapid phase in. I think they're going to go from 11.5 net to 15% net right away once this passes, and then by mid next year go up to 20. But then there's something like a review that they put in, and I haven't read this now, to basically say, is this working, and will there be sort of a way of adjusting the requirements?
So is this for anything new coming down the pike? Nothing that's all being discussed now?
And that was mentioned. The thing is that if you're already permitted, then this doesn't affect you.
But you had to have been permitted.
You have to already have your permit.
But if you're in the stage of getting a permit, it's going to affect you?
There were also, and this was some part of the discussion, there were some planned unit developments in areas like North Point.
Is that
PUDs, PUDs. And they were actually, you don't do that building by building, you do it by whole districts.
Okay.
So certain conditions that were signed off on, based on your ability to finance your project.
Yeah.
So they got their approvals. Now they may not have their building permit in hand for a particular project, but if part of the PUD said in 4 years we're going to do this, and then in the 6th year we're going to do that, then those are in the pipeline effectively, even if you don't have the building permit in hand. So my understanding is they can still operate under the old laws. I'm sure they'll find some incentives to get them to operate under the new, but we'll see. There's also some provisions for requiring larger apartments, family-size units, not across the board, of course, but that they must be included in the mix.
Bedroom, Yeah,
you can't just make one bedrooms or studios and call them affordable housing. So,
so there's going to be a formal hearing or ordinance? How does it go?
So the city council, it now becomes the city council petition for inclusionary zoning. Is referred to the planning board and ordinance committee, and they will each hold their respective. So is it an ordinance
as it becomes an ordinance?
The zoning ordinance is an ordinance, so this is an amendment to the zoning ordinance.
And that will be a public hearing?
These will all be public hearings.
But that has not been set yet, that date?
No, those have not been set yet.
I know we only have, 4 minutes left, but can we talk about the Harvard Square, that meeting that Devereaux mentioned on December 7th.
Yeah, so
where they want equity. Yeah, that's all very interesting to me.
On the afternoon of December 7th, there's.
Well, it's at 5:30.
Oh, it is
5 p.m.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Okay. So in that meeting, what is that,
December 1st, you might be talking about. Yeah, this is a Wednesday on December 7th, and they've invited Equity One or whoever, and Gerald Chan, who owns quite a bit of
Harvard Square.
So I'm curious whether they're going to. Show up, but
well, probably will. But the thing is there's been a multitude of things relating to Harvard Square lately.
Yes, the
kiosk. Certainly the kiosk. So I guess that'll be part of the discussion. But more importantly, what's happening with the actual buildings.
Can you rephrase? Someone said there's all of these properties that are empty now. I know about the cinema. And that channel. Where are the other empty ones?
I don't think there's that many.
I can't think of where they are.
I think there may be others, but I don't know where they are. But I know the Curious George building was purchased by Equity One, and now apparently,
but that's occupied right
according to Councilor Devereaux, Equity One, the company, has now in the process of being acquired by
swallowed by a larger whale, but I don't know who. Whale. Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
So anyway, there's things going on. I think it's a good idea to sort of have a broad, freewheeling discussion with property owners. That's
But if
one
they
of the
don't
things.
show up, it's going to be a real embarrassment.
I think they will.
Yeah?
But it's to whatever degree we manage to get anything good accomplished in Central Square, and we actually have got some good things accomplished in Central Square. We would like to do better.
Yeah.
Is because we have at least some partnerships between property owners,
Right.
business associations,
wasn't adversary,
residents,
it was
city
more
staff.
working together.
We
Yeah.
try not to be adversarial.
Right.
We try to just sort of get the best
Yeah.
results.
Well, so the Harvard Square Business Association, what is their take on all this? Do
I
you know?
haven't heard, really.
They're kind of pro-development, yes?
I think they're pro-business for their
Well,
businesses.
I guess that's what I meant,
And that,
pro-business,
honestly,
yeah.
I would say that if I was in the Harvard Square Business Association and my members were about to get their rents tripled,
Right, they would be
I
pretty
think
active.
I wouldn't be so happy about the property
Exactly,
owners.
right.
On the other hand, some members of
Mm-hmm.
the Harvard Square Business Associations, some rather prominent members, are major property owners in
Right, so
Harvard
they're
Square.
sort of on the other side of it.
Right.
They're the landlords.
Yeah, they're the landlords. I don't think they were the worst of them, but it's like these new investors that come in tend to be the biggest problem.
Well, yeah.
So I hope it goes in a good direction, and it's not just sort of people taking sides and getting mad at each other.
I'm definitely going to try to go to that meeting. That sounds
I'm
very
going to try to
interesting.
go
Yeah.
as well, because I think there's been so much misinformation
Right.
about the Harvard Square kiosk
Yes.
being promulgated.
I know.
And we'll have to see what happens with the Curious George building. I had actually, quite honestly, I had totally forgotten about the cinema building because it's been closed for a while.
When they mentioned that was the one he owned, I said, "Oh, right, that's what he
That's
owns.
right,
He owns
yeah.
where the Sinclair is, because that's part of that.
That's the Sinclair
He's
is
operating, but he owns that.
no,
you
that's
sure
John
about that?
DiGiovanni and Trinity
Oh.
Properties.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So
it's just the cinema building.
no, Chan owns bunches of buildings all around, but that was the most prominent vacant building that I know
vacant.
of.
Yeah,
So
I can't think
so
of
I
other
hope
vacant
something good
ones,
comes
yeah.
of this. The council can just become meddlers, or they can
Yeah.
become creative, helpful participants.
Yeah.
I hope they choose the latter
Okay.
rather than the former.
Right.
I think there are some possibilities there.
Okay.
So anyway, so that's coming up. So
All right. So roundtable will be on Sanctuary Cities.
Sanctuary
That's on
Cities
Monday
is coming
night.
Monday, where we had a
Check
million
out-
other things we could have talked
But
about.
check out
but we'll go
Robert's
with that.
Cambridge Civic Journal and see all these upcoming meetings.
Yeah,
yeah.
so I guess we'll see you again next week,
Next week.
on Cambridge Inside Out.
Bye bye.